Hi everyone, it's Jay Egersdorff here, head of Gameweek 37 of the Fantasy Premier League. Now, is there anything in life that gets you more angry than when you get angry with yourself? And that's exactly how I felt since I made a bit of a mad move on the morning of Gameweek 36. Despite preaching, those of you who follow me on Twitter and social media, preaching the Salah exit, so taking Salah out of your team for a few weeks, for some reason which I will explain, I sort of bottled it and put him back in my team for a -4 points hit, which seemed a great idea ahead of the Stoke game. Felt like a bloody awful idea by 3 o'clock on Saturday when it dawned on me. Salah just hadn't delivered any points, and actually a lot of the things that I predicted, so things like Stoke being really hard to beat, I've looked at that Liverpool team and thought no Mane and a couple of other players injured and rested, that would play into Stoke's hands. And also it was a bit of a, as they say, after the Lord Mayor's show, Liverpool had played fantastically in midweek, of which Salah was absolutely sensational and didn't really put on the same level of performance on the weekend. It also meant that my planned transfer, which I talked about getting Man City players into your team, I would have put Sterling in for Mahrez and I'd have captained Kane, and I wouldn't have had the -4 points hit. So sat here really kicking myself about that one. But onwards and upwards, it left me 42 points, pretty hopeless, with a -4, so 38, and it made me fall 500 places, which from 900 and something to 1,456 overall, which is still not bad, right? It's still pretty good, but not where I could have been. So can't dwell on these things. What I fell foul of is something that I've noticed over a long time of playing this game, and it's something that I call FPL fear, and it's the fear of missing out. So it's the fear of your judgment can usually, with all the information that we get nowadays, the stats, and even in the case of Liverpool, the team lineup was available on Twitter. It had been leaked for those of you who know the account to follow. And what you do, you make these decisions where you base it on a fear of missing out on points, and you don't actually look at the flip side. So the irony of the situation is, if I'd have not logged on to my team at all, even if I'd have played Mahrez, I'd have finished up with more points than all that thinking and all that tinkering you do over a 7-day period between each game week. So the fear of missing out on points can sometimes actually mean that you miss out on even more than if you'd have just played rationally. And also another lesson is sticking to your strategy. So I'd laid out a strategy, and if you look at the way I played earlier in the season when I took out Kane, that's a very aggressive move. So I've talked to you in different videos about how winning is about playing consistently and having a consistent strategy. So this is a bit like a football team playing 5 defenders at the back one week, and then the next week playing 3 at the back, and the next week 5 at the back, so their tactics are shifting the whole time. So when I took Kane out, that was a very aggressive move. I was taking out the star man, and it affected me because I obviously got 2 back-to-back hat-tricks, which is annoying, and the other guys that I replaced him with, the money didn't fire. But the point is, that's an aggressive move, and if I'd have played consistently, I did the same with Salah, took him out, aggressive move, taking out the star man. But then halfway through that strategy, I got bottled it basically, and put him back in, and had I remained with my original plan, I'd have been a lot higher up the rankings than I actually am. So I want you to apply that thinking into game week 37. There's a little caveat to that I'll talk about, which is don't think you need to have certain players because you're going to miss out on points. You need to play your own game, and you need to think of your own reasonings behind players. The caveat I'm talking about here is when it comes to a game week 37, when you're competing, particularly people in your mini leagues, don't be too thrifty or be afraid to make ambitious moves, or to think, oh, I'm not taking a -4 for, let's take for example Sterling. I mean, I think we're pretty much in agreement. Sterling's on great form at the minute, so he'd be a really good player to have in your Game Week 37 team. So don't think because you have, say, let's say you had Fabregas from Chelsea, who's in and out the team. If he plays, he may do well, but he's not guaranteed to start. And you think, oh, for a -4, I'd rather keep the -4 points. That's one way you'd probably want to be investing the points, because it's likely you'd get them back. So don't confuse what I was saying earlier. There's a fine line between too scared to make a move and being too bold and throwing around your -4 points like they're going out of fashion. So I hope that explains that bit of thinking and gives you a bit of a tactical insight into how I think you need to approach game week 37. So moving on to this exciting double game week that we've got. Myth number 1, we all need to get our head round. There is going to be rotation in this game week. So I think irrespective of the team, maybe with the exception of Swansea and Southampton, who are playing 2 pretty crucial games, and I think they're going to want to pick their best teams in both matches. I think expect to see rotation from Chelsea, Tottenham, Man City, Arsenal, Man United. So looking at some of these fixtures, Swansea, I've brought in Alfie Mawson ahead of this because they've got Bournemouth away and Southampton at home. They need probably 4 points out of those games, I'd have thought. Pretty important. They certainly need a win in one of them, and he's going to be key to keeping it tight at the back. Likewise, Southampton, Everton away, Swansea away, so their fixtures are slightly harder. But again, I think they're going to need to play a consistent 11. Tadic did great on the weekend, so maybe he'd be a good differentiator for you. They desperately need the points, so there's 2 teams that are going to be really gunning for it. Everton, are they going to be that bothered? But there is something I think we need to think about, and it applies to the Everton, it applies to Brighton, it applies to West Ham, it applies to obviously Man City, but I'll come into that in a minute. But these teams that have seemingly nothing to play for, it's their last home game of the season. So usually there's a bit of a party atmosphere. The fans want to celebrate, particularly if that team's achieved quite well. And it might just mean that they've stayed up or they've just finished mid-table or something like that. So they're not going to make it easy for these teams that are desperate for the points, because they're going to be, up for putting on a performance in front of their fans. Chelsea, Liverpool, then Huddersfield. I've got Willian. He's a pain in the backside because he's brilliant, I think, but he doesn't always play, which is mad. I'm bracing myself that he's only going to play 1 out of those 2 games, but I can kind of accept that because I'm hoping it'll be the Huddersfield one. City, they're going to get the trophy on Sunday. They've then got this Brighton game. Now, I actually think that they're going to pepper Huddersfield 4 or 5-0 on Sunday and have a right old party and win the trophy. And then that Brighton game, I can see things, it's going to be a bit of a dead rubber, I think, that one. I think Brighton will probably be safe by then. I can see things like Yaya Toure getting a farewell match. They might give Phil Foden a game. They might give the reserve goalie a game. I can see them maybe switching things up a bit for that game. I might be wrong, but I can see some of the things disrupting their team. Arsenal's a bit of a mad one. That Burnley game I think will be quite tight, and then they're playing Leicester. It depends what mood they're in after the Atletico game on Thursday. And then Man United, Brighton and West Ham away. 2 final home games for those teams. I think Brighton are not bad at home, they're quite rigid, and West Ham, I don't know why this is, maybe somebody can tell me, but they hate Man United, and they're not gonna want to lose that game, especially after the poor performance against Man City. So I can see that being quite tough. Fine if you've got a United defender, but maybe not tons of goals in that one.